Welcome to another IoT intro video. I'm your host Ulno, and today we will use IoTempower to the fullest. We do our first steps with actually using IoTempower to program the microcontrollers in a very quick and convenient way. So follow along and hopefully get your mind blown a little bit. We have here on the table our normal setup. We have my own network on the IoTempower gateway, and I will program two devices for you today. So one device is actually here and one here. So this device will actually get a button. So we have here this button shield, and we will put the button shield on there. And on this button shield, always, as a rule of thumb, just pay attention that you can still see the antenna when you push it in, but you should of course just compare really the pinouts that is the same on top as on the device. So put in the shield, and later in the game I will program the second device. But let's do this one first and get the button running. So for this, you can also follow along a manual in the network. You know it, so just look for IoTempower on GitHub, and in there you can look at the Raspberry Pi Quick Start. And the Raspberry Pi Quick Start, you can go to the first IoT node, and in the first IoT node you can fast forward to actually first deployment. It's kind of a little bit Windows optimized here at the moment, so just use that kind of as a course, follow along, but mainly look at what I will do here in the video, because I think that will be the easiest way to get you started. So basically now we want to go to gateway.iotempower.net. And first we have to actually check if we're logged into the right network. Yes, we are logged into the right network. Then you can go to the gateway iotempower.net, and we get this page. And in there, we're now going to our IoT system example configuration folder. And that opens Cloud Commander, which is a file manager and editor to actually interact with the file system on the Raspberry Pi in this case, or on your IoTempower installation. The username is IoT and the password IoTempire. And in there you see we are now in the folder Home IoT Systems Demo 01. And this Demo 01 is basically a whole system, and you can see actually we have a system.conf in here. So all our IoT systems in IoTempower are basically a folder that has a system configuration file in there. So we can take a quick look at the content, and as you see, everything is commented out because all the data is generated automatically. But you take your configuration and put it to a different computer, you can adjust this file to reflect that the installation is not on your local computer but on another gateway. So, and in here are the nodes. As you see, there is one test node in there which is pre-configured. We can look at this file here and see that there's a button configured in there. But let's kind of start basically from the top. So I will be now in the Demo 01 folder, in the system folder, and I want to create a new node in here. So for this we press F2, and then we go to create new node folder. Then you should verify that it has a new, that it's in the right folder. It's an IoT system Demo 01, and they say yes, that's where I want to create my new node. Say OK, and see now you have a new node here. We will with Shift F6 rename that and call that our test 02. And then we look here at the setup folder and want to edit this. And you see there's nothing in there. It's just, we see there's a reference of all the devices that are there. So we can either look here at examples running no test setup, or we can just look at the manual. So we will look at the manual. For this, we go on to the start page again. And here we have up here the commands. And this is all the devices you can have in IoTempower. And we have a button and a onboard LED. So we will basically now configure first the button. And here we see the description, how you can configure the button. And down here is an example. So we will just copy the example. and put it here into the editor. And so as we don't want to have our button depressed, we just say released instead of depressed. I say pressed and released. And so this button is just our B1 and where it is connected. So let's kind of zoom in onto the button and see where this might be. So if we look at the button closely, we can see that there is a small link from, where is it? It's hard to see, but you see there is actually a small link from D3 to the upper leg here. And so that means this button is actually on D3. So what means debounce? Debounce means basically that as we humans don't press really precisely and really make contact, so we kind of shiver a little bit, like when I use the pointer to show you. And so basically this helps us seeing when the button made really contact. So let's leave this debounce like it is. So, and then let's go back to the manual, and then we want to have also the onboard LED. So we will look here, and oh, there is something about LED, but it's the same as output. So see, LED out, relay, and is all the same thing. So we will take this and put it in here. So basically, in this case, on and off are anyway the default values, and this one is on the LED built-in, which is also D4, and we know it's inverted. So we say that's behind. So that's all we need, and it's not a yellow LED, it's a blue LED. So as you see, all these IoTempower commands are just a name here, and then the parameters that are needed to describe the behavior of it. So we have defined now two devices, one input button and one LED. You can also see actually for the button, you could also just write button if you wanted to. So yeah, button, as you see, is also the same as input. So let's kind of call this button. Then it's a bit more verbose, but it's the same command. So we programmed basically our first device. So we see nothing to do with MQTT and publish, subscribe. Here, the framework is handling this all for us. So let's just close this editor, do Control S for saving, and then we go out here. And now we have to call the menu again. So we should also make sure that the device is connected. So you see basically here, the orange cable is in here. And so this device is actually here, this device. And now we can flash that. So we now say we want to go to advanced, because deploy means we're flashing it over the network. And as we haven't flashed it yet, the network address is not known. So the first thing we have to actually go to deploy, and we say initialize device over serial. So then make sure you're trying the right thing to put on this connected device, and then you say yes, run it via serial. It detects that the dongle is there, so it jumps over the dongle and detects automatically the port where it is connected. And now it's compiling everything. This can take 1-2 minutes or so if it needs to get new things out of the network, maybe even 5 minutes. But usually most of the things are in the cache, and it's quite fast. And of course, when I say this, this takes longer. So now we are at the link stage. So it should be soon done. It's now building the final step of the firmware, and now it will flash it to the device. If you see that, you have been successful. And then it also should tell you that things are successful. One hint is if you use it with multiple persons, you can only have one compile or flash progress going on at the same time, else it would be not clear which device you want to actually address if two persons work at the same time at the computer. So we are done now. So now the device is basically already active. And if you want to check it out, we can just open a shell in this folder, and we can do that here. We can go into shell escape. Now we're in the test02 folder, and we can use the built-in IoT commands and do an MQTT listen here. So if we wait, it should already give us that there's a button and a blue LED. And now if I press the button, I will continue pressing it. Let's look at the screen. See, I now press down, press and release, and we see it's already working. So you wonder why the LED is kind of coming in between here. It's basically a status report. So let's also program the LED now. So I stop here and I do an MQTT send, and as MQTT send better than MQTT mosquito publish derives the topic automatically, we can, instead of putting the whole URL here, just say we want to send something at blue set, and we just send an on command here. So let's look if the LED turned on, and then it's hard to see. We lift it up here, and you see the LED is on. So let's switch back to the here and let's send an off. And I will send it in a second. Let's switch back first. So now I'm sending it, and you see the LED is actually turning off. We can do that with the Arduino IDE too, or with Platform IO. So what is actually really cool? So imagine we want now to change something here. So we edit our file again, and we will basically just want to say we want to have pressed and released or depressed. We want to have up and, no, it's actually down and up. Down and up. And let's actually, before we do that, let's remove this device and plug it in somewhere else. So I take it out of the Pi, and now let's imagine we kind of install it basically somewhere in the wall. It's a button, and so you power it externally. So there's a program is on there, it comes there. So let's kind of switch back to the screen. And if we look, let's just start another listening thing here. It's just IoT gateway -L IoT Empire and IoT systems demo 01 test 02, and we run an MQTT listen in here. So there we see now that even if it's connected somewhere else, if I now press the button a couple of times, if you look back, you see it's still working, but it's still sending pressed and released. So let's now go back here where we kind of changed it to up and down, and now run the user menu again. And now we can just say deploy. And it's not connected to our computer anymore. We will compile the changes. It's linking it again. And after it's linked, it's now sending it via the network. And you see that's even faster than flashing it locally. And it basically has now reprogrammed the device that is somewhere else, just reachable over the network, not connected to the computer again. And now let's see if this device works as expected. You see already it sends down and not released anymore. So I will now press the device a couple of times, and you see it does now up, down, up, down. So let's do the next one, yeah? So same process. Let's make a new node. And so we will create new node folder. And are we right? Yeah, we are in the demo 01, not in some kind of subfolder. Oh no, let's make a subfolder. So let's make a new folder and say this is our test room. And let's make it in the test room. So let's create it in here. And now we're in the test room. Yes, we want to do it in the test room. And then we want to rename this one here. You can also right click and say rename. And let's call this Mega Tester or Mega LED. And so, because basically on that one we will just have an LED. And let's do copy and paste. So we go into test 2, we open this one here, and let's just take the LED from here, copy that, because we know that works, and put it into test room megalid. And here, we put it there, put it in there. And of course, you don't need all this. Up here, it's just reference. So that's kind of nice and small program. And that can be called blue too. So we do that. And for this, we now have to connect the new device here. I'll take this off screen for a second just to plug it in. Okay. Now this one is there. I need to plug this into the device. So there's some other software on there. It's blinking already. So let's overwrite this software. And not to deploy because it's not in the network yet. So we will actually say here we want to go to advanced and do an initialize serial. And so we have to compile that. So now it gets a couple of things from the cache. Now we are linking and flashing via our serial, via the cable. And for the next one, we could now use also deploy. So let's connect this device also to external power, because now we can remote control it and also remote flash it. There we go. So as you see, when you have flashed the device with IoTempower, we want to kind of quickly look at this again. So when it boots up, it has kind of a little bit of a boot procedure. Basically, you see that 5 seconds, this LED is blinking. And we can actually do something during this blinking process and put it in a different mode. It has to do with this adopting and the dongle process. But basically, it's also a nice thing. You can recognize that some device is kind of installed with IoTempower already if you see this 5-second blinking in the beginning and then it stops blinking. So that's a good sign. That means we have IoTempower on this device. So let's now see if we can control also that LED. We use the user menu. In here we say advanced and we do a shell escape in that folder. So now we're in the test room in the mega LED. And here we also can just send now MQTT via MQTT send the, oh no, it doesn't, we have to always go to set. Without the set, it just reports the value. So let's do an off. And if we now actually go up to the whole system and do here an MQTT listen, then it listens for everything which is happening here. You see actually some JSON plug and play topics coming there, but then you see the two devices that are actually active here. There is the test02 and then the test room mega lead blue. And you see also it constructs all the MQTT topic automatically out of the hierarchy that we have set up with the folders. And if we now build a small integrator, we can actually use one of the buttons to turn on the other LED. But I will keep that for a different movie, and we'll do that with the help of Node-RED. So I actually recommend you watching the Node-RED movie, because with Node-RED it's very easy to make this integration happening. But you can also use the MQTT action or write your own MQTT integrator to do that. But we have installed our first IoT system in, I think, less than 20 minutes. So I hope that was eye-opening and hopefully a little bit mind-blowing. We have used some command line and some UI tools for it. So I think it was easier than using the Arduino IDE and programming everything by hand. And so let's build some bigger systems in IoTempower. And looking forward to do this with you. See you in the next movies to actually check out all the devices we can easily set up with IoTempower. Bye-bye and stay tuned.